Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. My name's Bryony. If you've never been here before, on Tuesdays we do deep dives into the environmental, social and ethical issues with the beauty industry and beyond. So you are here on a Tuesday and today we're talking about the big issue that is mica. What we actually do in these videos is we have a bit of a chit chat whilst I put on makeup. Today we're recreating this look. If you want to know any of the products that I use, they're all cruelty free, vegan and not owned by parent companies that test on animals, and they're also all listed down in the description box down below. So without any further ado, let's get right on into this topic. This is also thanks to you all telling me on Instagram that you wanted me to cover this, so please do engage with me on there. My Instagram handle is right here, and here are some of my latest posts so you can see them. So if you are not already engaging with me in my stories, that is honestly where I get a whole bunch of like the feedback for what you want to see on here. So this is like the main form of communication until I hit 1,000 subscribers. In other words, if you're not subscribed yet, please do, because it makes a huge difference, and I know that most of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed, which kind of hurts my heart a bit. Without any further ado though, let's get into this very big topic about mica. So what exactly is mica used for? Now this is where we actually come into a wide array of things that you may not have even thought of when it comes to mica. Widely used across many different platforms. So mica actually goes by many different names as to confuse consumers, which I mean, like, we understand. We see that with palm oil, we see it with so many other things, because consumer education is at an all-time low and fake information online is everywhere. So it's just really easy to confuse people these days. The major uses of sheets and block mica are as electrical insulators in electronic equipment, thermal insulation, gauge glass, windows and stoves and kerosene heaters, dielectrics and capacitors, decorative panels and lamps and windows, insulation and electric motors, and general armatures, field coil insulation, magnet and commutator core insulation. The plastic industry uses ground mica as an extender and filler and also as a reinforcing agent. The rubber industry uses ground mica as an inert filler and as a mold lubricant in the manufacture of molded rubber products, including tires. So basically, mica isn't just used in cosmetics, it's used in, well, nearly everything, and the fact that it's being focused on cosmetics as being like the big issue is just another way to like demean typically feminine interests or feminine stereotyped interests, because of course none of this is worth anything, because creativity is not something to be admired, it's something to be squashed. So all mica is not equal. There are many different types, as you can see from all of the wide variety of applications. You wouldn't exactly use one that you use in cosmetics to create a sparkle to make a tire or make something that is like heat resistant. There's many different forms for different applications. Mica is a name for 3 dozen or so phyllosilicate materials whose crystalline structure can be split or delaminated into thin sheets or flakes. Different types of mica are used for different applications, depending on whether you need the material to be elastic, flexible, hydrophilic, insulating, lightweight, refractive or opaque, among several other qualities. Identifying the desired attributes for a given product can be tricky. Basically, you get different types of mica from all over the world for different applications. Let's have a look now at where exactly is mica sourced from. So the most common and popular place to source mica from is Jharkhand. It's Jharkhand. I looked that up 4 separate times on Google to make sure I got the pronunciation right. And so that is actually based in India, and this is kind of like known as like the mica belt of the world, because this is where you get the most premium mica from, and you can get a multitude of different sorts. You can also source mica from Madagascar and a number of other places around the world. So it's like there's places in Africa and there's places around India. So those are kind of like the hot spots for mica. And then there's also one mica mine which is based in the US. We need to discuss the issues around traceability. So when it comes to traceability, we have so many more issues here than you may actually think that you would do. When you're actually tracing a mineral that comes from predominantly third world countries, you come into many different issues. Sadly, supply chains are so convoluted and going directly to the source isn't exactly something that is really possible. So when it comes to sourcing ingredients from around the world, you're relying on referrals and you're relying on suppliers and stockists to actually know exactly who they are sourcing their mica from. Mica is a very individual kind of case here, because a lot of the mica mines are actually family owned, or they're illegal, or there are some which are controlled like by government actually overseeing stuff. So you've got mines that are based everywhere, and how exactly are these people meant to know exactly where it comes from when you're just getting it in sacks? And if you were running an illegal mica mine, why would you be like, oh yeah, by the way, this one was sourced by like children that are being beaten and abused, but there you go, this is for you. I'm charging the same price and everything looks exactly the same as when you're getting it from a legitimate mine, but you're expected to know all of this. Because mica is such an informal mineral in the way that not only it is sourced, but the way that it actually gets from point A to point G, or wherever the actual person that knows how to sell mica on, you know, like it goes through so many different middlemen that whole time, and it is really hard to actually go back to the source. Like I said, you think it's easy getting information like that when you're going down like a chain of multiple people that are going from rural place to rural place, picking up this mica along the way to then pass on to someone else. The incentive is not there to actually do the right thing and make sure that you're only sourcing the mica from legitimate companies who aren't actually exploiting people or children, and the fact that they have all of their health and safety in place. Am I saying this is a good thing? No, I'm not. What I am saying is it's a lot more complex than what we may be used to, because all of these mines are scattered around each other. How are you meant to know where you're getting it from? If you are someone that is actually making a product that includes mica, the challenge around trying to find out exactly where it comes from is bigger than what we can probably imagine. This is actually an issue that an MLM of all has pointed out as well. You may have heard of them, you may not have, hopefully you're not affiliated with them, because their name is Beauty Counter. Now, I do want to say the amount of work that they've done in this area is actually huge and should be commended, because that's a good thing. But also, they're an MLM company. If you know anything about me, you know that I personally think that MLM companies should continue in the same way that greyhound racing and horse racing should continue. It shouldn't. It's bad. It needs to stop. So one thing that Beauty Counter is trying to point out is the fact that there is a company which goes by the name of RMI, which we're going to talk about in just a second. They're trying to say, sorry, I'm using bubblegum. They're trying to say that RMI do not take into account traceability when it comes to like their certification process. They actually do. So what they're trying to spread here is actually lies. And I'll link all of that down below. Let's actually talk about RMI, or the Responsible Mica Initiative. You may well have heard of them. You may have seen even companies like L'Oreal saying that they've partnered with them. We've actually talked about this before in my L'Oreal video just up here, if you're interested in like the history of L'Oreal at all. So the Responsible Mica Initiative is actually incredibly recent, and what their goals are, this on the screen now, basically it's actually just ensuring that mica is sourced ethically, that there's no child labour. I think that their goal is to make sure that is all done and over in 2025, which is a very ambitious goal. They actually know where 57% of the mica coming out of India comes from, which is amazing, like we just talked about. Actually knowing those supply chains is so much harder than what people realise. So what the Responsible Mica Initiative do is they actually work with government to implement new procedures and regulations, and they actually work to enforce the existing ones that are being put in place by the government. So it's this consistent support back and forth between the government and the RMI. So this, I personally believe, is actually a really good system to try and make it work, but they are a bit like the RSPO of the mica world. Now, if you have watched my palm oil video, you know exactly where I stand on palm oil. Actually, it's not just one video, it's a 4-part series, because palm oil is that huge. Yeah, I'll actually link their website down below if you want to look into it a little bit more. I mean, I could make a separate video on it, but it's like all you need to do is just have a look at their website. I've had a look to see if there's any concerns about them as well. I haven't found any legitimate concerns about them other than what Beauty Counter has raised, which is actually shown to be like false. So I'm personally not worried about saying that the RMI is doing good work. Because if you're not new here, you know that we are here for reputable information. And I don't really consider it MLM reputable. And honestly, I actually agree with the way that the RMI are trying to handle this. It is such a huge cluster of issues that it will take concerted effort And like I said, they get funding from a bunch of companies that I do not agree with. But the thing is, sometimes even bad people can do good things. No one is a fully bad person. I preach that all the time. We need initiatives like this. It's very, very important if we are actually going to like change the world, or whatever you want to call it, like make systemic changes to the systemic issues around the world. My gosh, how much was systemic used last year as a word? I kind of feel like it almost loses all meaning now. But Bryony, what about synthetic mica? Like, we don't even need to exploit people to begin with. So we actually talked about all the uses of mica right at the start of this video. You can rewind and go back to it if you want, but basically you need a bunch of different types of mica for a bunch of different types of things, and sadly from the labs you can't actually get all of those different things, because when you're trying to mimic a mineral, it is a darn hard thing to do, because it's like, I think, is mica an element? I don't know if mica is an element, but it's really, really hard for even the smartest people in the world to come up with a way to actually mimic that. It's much easier to mimic meat than it is to mimic mica. When it comes to some cosmetics, you can actually use synthetic mica, like Sass Beauty is actually already one that is doing exactly this. I actually do really like their stance on this, because they're very much like a kind of natural company, but sometimes they'll actually choose the option that is like better for the people, and clearly we can see that mica is not exactly a good thing for the people that are working there, you know? Glow Getter lashes, in case you're curious, I think I trimmed this one shorter than that one. You can roast me in the comments, I don't really mind. Should we abandon mica in all the forms it comes in? Should we just boycott it, say nope, no more, we're not going to take part in any of this exploitation that is like absolutely happening? It's complicated. Of course, like most of the videos that I create, this is a very nuanced situation. Like every situation has nuance to it, and so that's why I like to take a very holistic view with everything that I talk about, because there's no absolute right and absolute wrong when it comes to this sort of stuff, because like I mentioned, there is no way to be an ethical consumer. If you're curious, that video is just up here. So like I said, mica is used in all different forms of life. It's not just used in makeup, it's like in nearly everything. It's nearly impossible to avoid. So for example, if you want to be able to support small business, if you expect them to be able to know exactly where everything that they are using to create their products with is fully traceable, that is not only like small-minded, but it's quite an ignorant view, because like as we've talked about in this video, it is near impossible, in particular with mica. There are a number of other ingredients where you like don't exactly know where it comes from. If you knew exactly what dinosaur your plastic came from, I'm sure that you'd feel bad too. Small business owners kind of need to rely on what their suppliers tell them, and in order to find a good supplier, what do you work from? You work from referrals, and you work from their reputation. If someone has a good reputation, all you can really do is trust that. You can try and travel somewhere to try and like see exactly what is happening on the ground, but a small business, an entrepreneurial business, and we want to support small and local businesses, it's not exactly going to happen unless these companies are sourcing all of their ingredients locally, are also able to actually, I don't know, make all of their technology locally, get literally every single ingredient, including the containers, including everything else, from actual local sources where they know full traceability. Near impossible. I'm just putting it out there. I would still rather support smaller companies that are trying to do good things and create good products than just say, what's your entire supply chain? Because it's really, really hard. They can absolutely do their best to do better, but I think it's quite an unrealistic standard to try and put on things. And if you go around the supermarkets trying to analyze literally everything, you're like, where exactly did this pepper come from? You'll know the country, but you won't know the conditions that the farmer worked in order to get that, you know? I'm just trying to point out the many complexities of the world, and I don't want people torturing themselves. Yes, we can absolutely strive to do better, but I don't want you to be like, I can't exist anymore, because I've come into like those sorts of things and I don't want anyone to feel that way. Now I also can't just recommend only buying from RMI certified companies, because do you know what those companies are? Most of them actually test on animals or exploit people in other ways. So there's literally no one good option in terms of being like, it's okay, I've got a pretty bow to be able to put on this and just be like, just shop from these companies and you're fine. Because that's not the case as well. So for me personally, I kind of feel the same way about mica in the way that I feel about palm oil, which I know is a controversial enough opinion to have anyway. Personally, I don't believe that boycotting people that are in a third world country is the right thing to do in order to be on a moral high ground. So families work in these mines because they have to. They do not have another choice. And by me choosing to not support them or not buy from them unknowingly, like I said, because we don't know exactly where things come from, that only harms them as opposed to helps them. Yes, raising awareness, being an advocate for the change that needs to happen. Like I said, RMI is down below if you want to have more information on this as well, along with all of my other sources, of course. But I just personally don't think that by punishing people in third world countries that are just trying to survive, I don't think that that's an effective way to make a change to a system where systemic change needs to happen. We need the governments to be aware of this. We need the governments to be involved, not just local ones but also global ones, because if you're in a third world country, you kind of need help from your neighbours who are more wealthy than you. I'm a big advocate for that. I think that there is nothing wrong with that, because you should always try and help people if you're in a position where you're able to. So ultimately, it's like, how do you know that you're supporting a good company when you do not know their entire supply chain? Long story short, you don't. No one actually does, and this just comes down to that same video that I talked about before with the fact that you can never be an ethical consumer. Like, it's just not possible, because the world is a complex mess and it's going to take so much work for us to be able to unravel it and get it to be somewhat better. Personally, I don't really see us reversing the climate crisis though. I personally don't believe that we can stop a poor family from eating because we want to be on a moral high ground. That's basically what this comes down to. I want change to happen. I feel awful for the people that are suffering, because there are many of them, and so many of them actually just get buried in the mines, like obviously away from where the valuable mica is. But it's awful when you see this. It's awful knowing about it. What can you do other than never buy anything or touch anything ever again and basically not exist? It's not possible, but what is possible is raising awareness, making sure that you are encouraging change. It's basically really, really hard to try and do good change unless you are involved politically. You know, like, the candidates that you're voting for, not just in terms of like big elections but smaller elections as well. Ultimately, I think that awareness is better than not being aware of anything. That's my personal stance on it. It's a very complex sort of world, but I don't want people in third world countries to suffer because of a message that I'm putting out there telling people to boycott this thing when it's actually going to hurt them more. So yes, that is my brain dump. I would love to hear your comments down below. So because we're talking about mica and because we're talking about sparkly things, because of course anything that is like typically a feminine interest is not worth it, please put down the sparkle star emoji in the comments to show that you made it all the way to the end of this video. I really do appreciate your participation in the comments as well, because like I said, all of these topics are really, really nuanced, and I know that mica is a topic that comes up time and time again. Will we be able to stop child labour in these mines by 2025? Who knows? Who knows if we're able to hit all of the goals that the RMI have, but I'm definitely a supporter of the work that they do. Anyway, lovelies, please do take care, and I'll see you again next Tuesday, maybe Sunday, with a review video. Who knows? In other words, just subscribe. I come up with new videos every single week, and I'd love to have you be part of this community, and I'll see you lovelies again very soon. Bye. Because when you're sourcing ingredients from around the world, you're relying on referrals, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I've got lip gloss on my teeth. Oh, I will just show you Pixie. Look at her. Hi. Hello. Hello. Hey kitten, aren't you cute? Aren't you cute?